Anchorage, Alaska. It's the early 1980s. The city was growing fast, with planes constantly roaring overhead and the streets buzzing with life. Fishermen, oil workers, tourists, and locals all rubbed shoulders in diners, stores, and bakeries. Among the people who lived there, few were as unnoticed, or as seemingly ordinary, as our local baker. To his neighbors, he was just Bob. He owned a small bakery on the east side of town. He opened every morning before sunrise, the windows glowing warm with golden light while the rest of Anchorage was still asleep. The smell of fresh bread drifted through the neighborhood as Bob kneaded dough in his apron, powdered with flour. Kids loved the sweet rolls. Elderly couples picked up their usual rye loaves and cinnamon twists. No one thought twice. Bob was polite. He kept to himself. He didn't drink. He was soft-spoken and awkward around strangers, but he always smiled and nodded when you passed him. He went to church. He coached a youth league for archery. He was married and had children. To most people, he was a hard-working family man. But there were a few things off. People said he stuttered when he got nervous. He seemed uncomfortable around women. At a local bowling alley, he would often sit alone for hours upon hours, watching others more than playing himself. A hunting buddy once joked, "Bob doesn't talk much, but man, he's got the eyes of a wolf in the woods." And he loved the woods. Bob Hansen wasn't just a baker though, he was also a skilled hunter. Almost every weekend, he packed up his gear and drove out beyond the edge of town, deep into the wilderness. He had a small bush plane, a red and white Piper Super Cub, that he used to fly to his cabin in the Matanuska-Susitna Valley. His hunting trophies were legendary. Animal heads mounted on his basement walls. Newspaper clippings about record-breaking kills. He was proud of his aim. His control. His patience. When he talked about hunting, his eyes lit up. It was the one time he spoke with real excitement. Alone in the wilderness, miles from civilization, that is where he came alive. But no one ever asked what else he hunted out there. No one wanted to believe that the man behind the bakery counter, the man who baked gingerbread cookies for the church bake sale, was hiding something darker. A secret so dark, no one would have ever guessed. Because he smiled. Because he held doors open and handed out fresh bread like kindness was baked into him. Because he helped old ladies carry their groceries and waved to cops like he didn't have a care in the world. Because monsters don't always look like monsters. Until one cold Alaskan day. Until the mask cracked. Until the girl ran. It was the summer of 1983 in Anchorage, Alaska. The sky was endless. The air was clean. And somewhere, hidden behind cinnamon rolls and charm, a nightmare was waiting. The midnight sun made the city feel surreal, light late into the night, shadows that never quite disappeared, like ghosts stretching over the edges of buildings. My name is Cindy. I was 17 that summer. And like a lot of girls my age, I thought I had things figured out. I didn't. Life wasn't easy. I had run away from home. Trust didn't come easily. I made choices just to stay afloat, never expecting that one night would change everything. It started like any other. I was walking near Fifth Avenue, outside one of the motels where men passed through more often than they stayed. That night, a car pulled up, a little faster than most, and the man behind the wheel gave me a small, but nervous smile. He looked so normal. Quiet. Glasses. Neatly combed hair. Not like the flashy, reckless guys who came through downtown. He said his name was Bob. He spoke softly, like he didn't like using his voice. Almost shy. "Do you want to make some quick money?" he asked. "Go for a ride. Maybe just talk." At first, I hesitated, but I had seen worse. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't aggressive. He was clean and looked like a shy normal guy looking for fun, so I got in. The car was clean. The air smelled like pine. His hands trembled a little on the steering wheel. At first, we didn't talk much. He kept glancing at me, then looking away, like he was ashamed of something. "I'm not like the others," he finally said, eyes on the road. "I don't like to hurt people." I didn't know what to say. I was confused. We drove for a while. Longer than I expected. At one point, I asked where we were going. He didn't answer. When I turned to look at him again, his whole body had shifted. His eyes had gone flat. There was no smile now. No awkwardness. Just silence, and a flicker of something, cold. I reached for the door handle. That's when I felt the pressure against my side. Something hard. A quiet, mechanical click. "Don't," he said. "Just sit still." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I froze. He turned off the main road, and we drove toward Muldoon, past the edge of where the city lights faded. Trees grew thicker. Streetlights vanished. We pulled into a driveway behind a brown house, tucked just beneath a canopy of pine. He opened the door, pulled me out by the wrist, and walked me to the back entrance. His grip never tightened. But it never loosened either. Inside, everything smelled like cinnamon and sourdough. The kitchen looked like something out of a Sunday morning. He had a bowl of dough already rising under a dish towel. There were kids' drawings on the fridge. A woman's scarf on the hook by the door. A normal house. But it was quiet. Too quiet. "Downstairs," he said. I hesitated. His head turned slowly toward me. "Now," he said, with a loud aggressive voice. The air in the stairwell was damp. The steps creaked as we walked down them. The basement smelled like old metal and something else, something I couldn't place yet. Something that made my stomach twist. He guided me into a small room. It was clean. Empty. Just a cot, a chair, and a set of metal chains attached to the wall. I remember asking, "Why are you doing this?" And he said something I will never forget. "I've done this before. You'll be fine. Just be good and nothing will happen to you." He left me alone for a long time. Minutes felt like hours. I sat there in silence, listening to the house above. Footsteps. A faucet. The sound of something being whisked in a bowl. It sounded like he was cooking or baking something. That night, while I sat on the floor wondering if I'd ever see the sky again, I could smell cinnamon rolls in the oven. That's when the fear set in. Real fear. Not the panic you feel when someone yells, or when you almost get hit by a car. This was slow. Creeping. A cold awareness that I had stepped into a place where the rules were different. Where no one could hear me. Where he had all the control. And somehow, even then, he still smiled when he came down the stairs. Like everything was normal. The next morning came slowly. The basement window was too high to see through, but I could tell the sun was up, by the light slanting across the ceiling. I had barely slept. Every time I drifted off, a sound would jolt me awake, the creak of a floorboard, the hum of a refrigerator, or worse, the thought of what would come next. Eventually, he came down the stairs again. He had a plastic tray in one hand. Toast. Orange juice. Scrambled eggs. He set it down like I was a guest at a hotel. "You'll want to eat," he said, almost kindly. "It's going to be a long trip." "A trip?" I asked, barely able to make the words come out. "To my cabin," he replied. "Out in the valley. It's quiet there." I stayed still, but every cell in my body was screaming. He began preparing. Packing a bag. Double-checking the gear. I saw a rope. A tarp. Zip ties. A small hunting rifle. "You like flying?" he asked. I didn't answer him. He smiled a little. "I've got a plane. Just you and me. No one around, for miles." He left me cuffed to a pipe in the basement while he packed. For hours, I listened to the sounds of movement upstairs, the drawers opening, doors closing, muffled footsteps on carpet. That's when I realized this wasn't the first time he had done this. He was too calm. Too deliberate. He had a routine. I wasn't the first. But I was determined, I would be the last. Later that afternoon, he returned and unchained me. My legs were stiff. My wrists hurt. "Time to go," he said. He led me outside. The sky was pale blue, cloudless. The world felt like a different planet after being underground. We drove through Anchorage in silence. I watched every sign, every building, every intersection. Not because I could do anything, but because I wanted to remember. If I lived, I would tell someone. Everything. He pulled into Merrill Field Airport, a quiet strip for private planes. There it was. A small plane. A red and white Piper Super Cub. Just like he said. He opened the hatch, tossed in his bag, and motioned for me to follow. My hands were still cuffed in front. My feet were free. My mind was racing. As he reached into the plane and adjusted the straps on the passenger side, I stood still beside the open hatch, my wrists still cuffed in front of me, pretending to be calm, obedient. He bent over again to check the back tires. That's when I saw it. He had set his bag down on the ground. His hand was on the plane, not on me. For the first time since the basement, there was space between us. Just a few steps. That's all I needed. I didn't even feel my legs move. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just ran. The gravel bit into the soles of my shoes. The cuffs clanked against my chest. I heard my heartbeat in my ears, louder than the wind. Behind me, nothing. No footsteps. No voice. Just silence. But I knew he was coming. I sprinted past a stack of fuel drums and nearly slipped on the loose gravel. A man refueling a small Cessna shouted something, but I didn't stop to answer. I tore across the tarmac, lungs burning, eyes scanning wildly for help. Fences loomed ahead. A small service gate to the road, locked. But beyond it, a white pickup truck was idling near the edge of the airport lot. I didn't hesitate. I launched myself at the fence. Grabbed the top. Pulled. The metal scraped against my arms. My sleeves tore. The cuffs made it harder to grip, but I forced my body over. And fell. Hard. My knee hit the pavement. My palms stung. But I was up again in seconds. The truck was rolling forward to turn. I dashed in front of it, waving both hands. Stop. Stop. Help. The driver, a middle-aged man in a ball cap, hit the brakes. His eyes went wide when he saw the cuffs on my wrists and the panic in my face. "Are you okay?" he asked, window rolling down. "No. Please. He's got a plane, he was going to fly me somewhere, just drive. Please drive." The man didn't ask again. He threw open the door. I climbed in, trembling, still glancing back over my shoulder as the truck peeled away from the airport. I looked out the rear window. And that's when I saw him. Bob Hansen. He was standing beside the Piper Super Cub, arms at his sides, watching the truck disappear. He didn't chase me. He didn't scream. He didn't even try to stop me. He just stood there. Expressionless. Still. Like a hunter watching the deer bolt into the woods, not angry, not surprised. Just calculating. The man drove us to a small motel near downtown. I don't remember what the sign said. All I remember is sitting on the carpeted floor of the lobby, shaking, still cuffed, still trying to make my brain understand what had just happened. The man behind the front desk brought me a towel and a soda. The truck driver called the police. I waited. My heart didn't stop pounding, even after the squad car pulled up outside. 2 officers stepped in. One tall and tired-looking. The other younger, suspicious. They asked me what happened. I told them everything. The bakery. The basement. The cuffs. The plane. One officer blinked, looked at the other, then asked again, "You're saying this was Robert Hansen?" "Yes," I whispered. "I'm sure. He's a respected man in the community," the older one said carefully. "Owns a bakery. Wife. Kids. He has a plane," I said. "He told me he has a cabin. He said I'd never come back." They didn't write that part down. "Are you absolutely certain it was him?" they asked again. I stared at them. Certain? I would never forget that face. The quiet voice. The eyes that looked at you like they were measuring your fear. "I'm sure," I said. But they didn't arrest him. They didn't even search the house. They let him go. For now. For weeks after I escaped, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the inside of that basement. The cuffs. The hunting gear. The way he had looked at me. Not with hate, but with calculation. Like I was part of some twisted game. I kept asking the same question over and over. Why didn't they believe me? Robert Hansen went back to his bakery like nothing had happened. The same man who had chained me to a pipe and whispered about flying me into the wilderness was now selling blueberry muffins to soccer moms and shaking hands at the register. I watched from a distance once, hidden behind a truck in the parking lot across the street. He laughed with a customer. Smiled. Like he hadn't done anything at all. I wanted to scream. I felt helpless, lost. But one person, just one, did listen. Sergeant Glenn Flotha of the Alaska State Troopers had been following a different case. A darker one. Over the past few years, girls had been vanishing, one by one. Young women, often runaways or loners, their faces showing up on missing posters no one looked at twice. Then bodies began appearing. Buried in shallow graves near the Nick River. Found in remote woods by hunters and hikers. None of the victims had names anyone remembered. But Sergeant Flotha had a list. He didn't believe in coincidences. And when he heard about a girl who had escaped a well-known Anchorage baker and pilot, who had a basement, a cabin, and a private plane, he felt a chill run through him. After some time, he asked me to come see him. He met me in a quiet room. No uniform. No tape recorder. Just a notepad and steady eyes. "Tell me everything," he said. So I did. This time, someone took notes. The investigation began in secret. They watched Hansen closely for weeks. Their eyes never leaving him. Every step he took was tracked, every routine carefully noted. They followed his movements from the bakery to his small house on the outskirts of town, and then to the old gravel runway where his plane waited like a silent predator. Investigators dug deep into his hunting records, flipping through maps, journals, and flight logs. It was strange. Almost too strange, how his trips always pointed to the same remote, rugged parts of Alaska, places few people ever ventured. And those same places kept turning up bodies. The pattern was too clear to ignore. Each hunting trip marked in meticulous detail, each flight path mapped to the wilderness where victims had vanished without a trace. The evidence was building like a storm. They could feel it tightening around Hansen, pulling him closer to the truth he desperately tried to hide. But he still walked freely, blending in with his neighbors, baking cinnamon rolls in the morning, just an ordinary man on the outside. Only the investigators, those who tracked him, knew the darkness lurking beneath. Finally, after some time, they secured a search warrant. When they went into his house, they found the basement just as I described it: cuffs, tools, a hidden crawlspace. After searching for some time, they found an attic above his garage. That is where they found something. They found a map. Not just an ordinary map. A hand-drawn map of the Alaskan wilderness. With dozens of tiny X's. Placed in similar areas to where many of the young girls who went missing were found. Each X was a place where he had hunted. Not animals, but girls. My ex wasn't there. But it would have been. If I hadn't run. They also found jewelry in a hidden box. Tiny pieces, rings, bracelets, earrings, souvenirs from girls who never came back. One of the items matched something worn by a girl found near Horseshoe Lake. The evidence was overwhelming. Finally, they had enough evidence. They arrested Robert Hansen. The baker. The father. The quiet man with the Piper Super Cub. During the trial, the courtroom was packed. Every eye fixed on him, Robert Hansen, the quiet man who had once seemed so ordinary, now revealed as something far darker. The air was heavy with tension, thick enough to choke on. When the prosecutor asked the question, simple but impossible to ignore, Hansen looked down, then slowly raised his eyes. There was no fire, no remorse, just cold acceptance. "I confess," he said, his voice low and steady, "to 17 murders. 17. The number hung in the air like a death sentence, but it wasn't the end. The prosecutor leaned in, voice sharper. "Do you admit to more?" His lips tightened, a shadow crossing his face. "They think there were more," he said quietly, almost like he was telling a secret only the walls should hear. He described in chilling detail what no one wanted to imagine, flying his victims deep into the endless Alaskan wilderness, releasing them into the vast, merciless forest. I hunted them, he said flatly. Hunted them like prey. A shiver passed through the courtroom. Murmurs rippled, but no one spoke. The weight of his words pressed down like the cold winter sky outside the courthouse windows. Then came the testimonies. I sat on the witness stand, hands trembling but voice steady. I told my story, how I was caught, chained, and how I escaped that nightmare. I was not alone. Other girls stepped forward, some who had escaped, some who recognized his patterns, all of us bound by invisible scars deeper than anyone could see. We shared our pain, our fear, our fight. He sat there the entire time. Small, silent, eyes fixed on the floor. Not once did he meet mine. Not once did he look at any of us. He was a ghost in that courtroom, a man who had lived a double life, now exposed and broken. During the last day of the trial, the courtroom was silent. The judge entered. Bob Hansen sat there in court, small and silent, like he had been the day I met him. He never looked at me. Not once. The judge sentenced him. His voice cut through the silence. Robert Hansen, you are hereby sentenced to 461 years in prison. He ended up dying behind bars. Sometimes I still dream about the gravel runway. The smell of cinnamon rolls in the kitchen. The cuffs. But other times, I dream about the moment I jumped that fence. The wind in my face. The sky wide open above me. The sound of the truck door slamming shut and pulling away from the worst thing that ever happened to me. That was the moment I stopped being a victim. That was the moment I became someone who fought back. Someone who ran. Years passed. The headlines faded. People forgot. But not me. Not the girls he took. Not the ones who didn't come back. Sometimes I visit the memorial near the river. The place where some of the girls were found. I leave a stone. Or a flower. Something small. Because I remember. And because I survived. And now, so will their stories.